Rewind the dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to, which show is this one, Wai? This is the AEW show. This is Dynamite.
REWIND-A-DYNAMITE. Yes, that's what this show's called. Yeah, you've done a lot of them recently today.
It's been yes, many. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, not so bad.
I've not listened to the whole thing yet, but I have enjoyed so far your the wellness policy. Very good interview.
Thank you so much. I always, honestly, I say this every time you bring it up, but I always appreciate you as busy as you are taking the time out.
You're always amazed.
Yeah.
I have such an interest in you and Neil and Jordan. I always listen, and every month when I bring this up, it's like I'm telling you that like I've donated my life savings to charity.
Well, I know how busy you are, and therefore
I always make time. I make time.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that means a lot. It's a compliment. And I really enjoyed the show. We were speaking to a wrestling photographer by the name of James Musselwhite. You might not know the name, but I'm sure you know some of his pictures. He's a very
familiar with him.
Very talented wrestling photographer who has just who has done a number of portraits, famous portraits, I would say, for a lot of wrestlers that you saw probably on tonight's show. We just got to have a great chat with him about just how he got into the industry, but just also I think what he looks for in terms of a great photo, especially like the greatest wrestling photos of all time. So it was a really enjoyable conversation.
All right, well, check that out on the cafe feed.
Yeah, but free.
For free.
PostWrestlingCafe.com, yes. Or Check YouTube, right here.
We make it so easy for all of you.
Mm-hmm.
We will have some show announcements for next week, but that's coming up a little later on before we get to Dynamite. But we're just going to blitz through just a few quick news items. I spoke about this today with Brandon Thurston, but I did want to get some of your reaction, Wai. We knew that this was coming. These four primetime specials that WWE will get on NBC as part of the SmackDown deal with NBC Universal. And they are, in fact, this has been spoken about, but confirmed that they are going to go with the branding of Saturday night's main event, beginning with a December 14th show on Long Island, 8 Eastern on not just NBC, but will also be simulcast on Peacock. And if you've seen the promo that they dropped, heavily leaning into the nostalgia for this. And what is your thought on these, like 4 per year? We always talk about trying to be able to make additional content feel important, but nostalgia is a pretty easy access way to, I think, alert people to check out more wrestling on a given week.
I actually think it's a little bit challenging these days to try to force another. How long is this show? 1 hour?
This will be a 2-hour window.
2-hour show. To try to feed another 2 hours of extra content to an audience that is already so full of it. I mean, Saturday night's main event made its name at a time when there wasn't that. And especially like
you had to go to house shows to see the competitive matches. Like
exactly.
That was not a staple of television programming. And
yeah. And the closest idea that maybe we might have of this concept is from what I would consider a pretty failed attempt to bring the Saturday night's main event brand back in the mid 2000s that gave us really no reason to spend those extra 2 hours to watch those shows.
And they got shelved. Like they just ended up becoming the tribute to the troop specials, honored that part of the contract. Yeah. And conversely with Battle of the Belts, there was a lot of interest. If you go back to the numbers for that first Battle of the Belts, which went up against a NFL playoff game, as I recall, and it did the best number because there was nostalgia, even though it's not called Clash of the Champions. That was the idea people saw of Battle of the Belts. And in time, it just became a extra hour of programming.
It just ended up like at this point it kind of feels like it's an obligation because somebody signed a contract that says we need X amount of content, and obviously every TV deal is that, but I think in order to make it a successful and maybe worthwhile part of the show, you have to be able to differentiate it somehow. And I think the WWE has found like great success in branding their anniversary shows, or like remember a throwback Raw, or Raw retro, whatever they call that. Old school Raw. Thank you very much. Just like some form of special decoration, hitting the nostalgia note, I think is really their best chance. I have a lot more optimism for this iteration of Saturday night's main event, because I think you're talking about a regime that I think has a much better understanding of their audience and what might work, what might click with them. I think somebody like Levesque will be able to take advantage of the spot in a much better way than Vince was able to, and he'll try to do something special with it. The fact that they are using obsession and seemingly hitting those notes really hard gives me a lot of confidence that I think you're going to see something that might be a bit more worthwhile than in the past.
Yeah, and as we were mentioning today, in the absence of a pay-per-view in December, you can make this your big event of December. It's 2 weeks after Survivor Series, so it's a quick turnaround. But nonetheless, it's for a year. It's broadcast television. You want to maximize your 2 hours on a broadcast network when you're not going to have, regular, programming on Fox. You do get 4 times a year on NBC. So I think for sure the first one, much like with Battle of the Belts, they're going to be most interested in this first one just because of the novelty of Saturday night's main event, which is it's the way I think you should brand these rather than WWE Body Slam.
I think it's also a chance to, I don't know if it's a coveted audience for them, but maybe the type of fan that grew up with Hulkamania in the 80s and hasn't watched wrestling in a long time. Maybe they have children that, they want to just, hey, I remember this. Let's put this thing on and like see what's up with professional wrestling lately. I don't think it can hurt to try to get some of those people back.
Well, what was deemed a success in 2006 on network television, it's substantially lower in 2024 for primetime network television. Like you would have been talking in 2006, like just being able to hit like a threshold. And like I'm very certain that this will do a respectable primetime number for NBC. And in the demo, it may do actually very, very well. We will see. Couple NXT notes coming out of Tuesday. So they are now doing the hard push for the first 2 episodes on CW. October 1st, they are in Chicago. CM Punk will be the guest referee for Ethan Page against Trick Williams. And also on that first show on CW, Zachary Wentz against Wesley and Roxanne Perez against Julia. But then the big show is the next week, October 8th, in the booming metropolis of Chesterfield, Illinois, which is, as much as we talk about all the differences between Vince McMahon and Paul Levesque, still marketing this as St. Louis. They are not promoting this as Chesterfield. So that is one similarity between them. But yes, Randy Orton will in fact wrestle on this show against Javon Evans, which to me is the perfect use of a Randy Orton wrestling on NXT, and maybe the best opponent I would want to see him against.
This has sort of elements of like almost like a GCW show where like, I don't know, you're just kind of hitting the randomizer and like here are 2 guys that you would have never really associated, never really expected to appear on screen, just kind of given their ranks. Yet we're going to see the match, and I think I have a real curiosity about it. It's going to be like the fastest opponent Randy Orton has faced in a long time, and Randy moves really well today, but his style is not necessarily like, he's had great matches with like, high flyers. And I'm sure like the RKO out of nowhere that you're going to see is going to be amazing. That's probably the spot that maybe the exact reason why they chose Javon Evans, just for that, like whatever they can come up with to try to hit that RKO out of nowhere. But like, I have a real curiosity about what this is going to look like. Is it going to be slowed down to an Orton pace, or is Orton going to try to work faster? How are they going to balance the babyface reaction that Orton's bound to receive, and I'm sure Javon Evans will also receive as well. So I'm very curious about it.
Do you remember what year Randy Orton had his first WrestleMania match?
I want to say 03.
It was 2004 at WrestleMania 20 at Madison Square Garden. It was Evolution against Rock and Mick Foley. 6 weeks later, Javon Evans was born.
Jesus, stop. I don't like hearing stats like that. Fuck.
Also announced for that October 8th show is Nathan Frazier and Axiom against A-Town Down Under. So that's the show for Chesterfield. What show would you want to attend?
Don't forget Sexy Red, okay?
Oh, yes, Sexy Red is Sexy Red on the second show?
Missouri one, yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to keep these straight. There's a Miz TV in there as well. I think that's on week 1. But yes, they're pushing both of these shows. Probably...
I'll be honest. Okay, well, Julia versus Roxanne, I think, is maybe my most anticipated match of anything. I'm at the fact that it's just like a Punk doing a special guest ref. I don't think that's that meaningful to me, in my opinion. I'm not that excited for it. But the second show, I don't think they're just like writing off. I mean, I feel like having
dude, the second show is the head-to-head show with Dynamite.
Oh, wow. There you go.
So that's, in many ways, the show that needs... you really need to stack that up. The first week, I don't know if it's going to, it's not going to have the level of audience that Donald Trump and Kamala Harris had, but you do have the vice presidential debate, and it's not going to be an insignificant audience. However, what we have learned from NXT, absolutely bulletproof when it comes to programming, at least in the political sphere, affecting their numbers. This, I will take CM Punk on NXT over any... politically astute NXT audiences that are going to choose to debate over NXT.
Sure. Yes.
Also, ratings from Tuesday night. Very, very good performance for NXT. Number 1 in the demo among cable programming in prime time, led by CM Punk's appearance on the show. 677,000 viewers and a .21 in the demo. This up 8% in viewership, which was their highest audience since June 18th, and a 10% increase in the demo, which was their largest since July the 9th, which was the episode following Heatwave. So, yeah, first among cable programming in prime time, beating out Fox News and Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, which is what Way was watching on Tuesday. And, number 1 for the evening.
As expected, would you say?
It wasn't a crazy competitive night, but it was still like a .21 is still very good for NXT. Interesting what is going on in Canada. Since Dana White's Contender Series has begun, NXT has been moved to 11 p.m. on Tuesday nights in Canada. You can still watch it live on the Sportsnet Now app at 8, which makes the fact that they're retaining their audience to a good degree at 11 even more impressive, because your NXT audience does have access to watch it online, but still they are doing so. Anyway, Dana White Contender Series last night did 20,000 viewers, and then the 3-hour delayed NXT did 61,500 viewers at 11 p.m. So this looks to be the permanent schedule during Contender Series, which goes several more weeks, but NXT is on the way out, and UFC is their long-term property, so they are getting the primetime coverage on Sportsnet 360. But that's how the Canadian wars are breaking down. Did you keep up at all with the Rogers Bell saga today?
I actually only heard about it from you. So tell me what's going on. They bought the stake in MLSE, basically.
They have bought out Bell's portion. So Rogers and Bell for about 12 years have had a 37.5% share in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, which includes the Raptors, Maple Leafs, Scotiabank Center. And today it was announced Rogers is going to buy out Bell for 4.7 billion Canadian that they are buying them out for. But yes, this is
buying out their stake in MLSE. So
buying out their stake. Yes,
this gives them full control of the whatever.
It gives them majority
Raptors
control. They'll have 75%. Okay. Larry Tannenbaum has 15%, and then there's a fund that has another 5%. But basically, Rogers has majority control now.
Okay. And what would that mean to you or I?
Well, what it means is Bell gets a significant windfall of money, and for Rogers, I'm sure this will somehow make its way onto your cable bill in some form or fashion. Right. There will always be a trickle-down effect to you and I to justify Rogers' expenditures.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's what I imagine.
Well, one of these two is going to take over. Honestly, it doesn't really matter which one at this point. They own everything anyway.
when I was reading like everything that Rogers now encompasses just in sports, I mean, it's insane. But there you go. That's Canada for you. There was a photo today, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi training together. Just whetting everyone's appetite.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know if we've seen Kenny at all. Like any sort of.
He's kept a pretty tight lid on things, but yeah, he's been out since December, and the fact that he's just in a gym and training is obviously encouraging. Kota Ibushi is actually wrestling, so he is more active.
Yeah. Well, we certainly hope for both of these two. You know, the speediest of recoveries. We want to see the Golden Lovers return. I really should have worn my hat, given the occasion. Sorry, I'm trying to bring the photo up just for our audience, but there you go. Yeah, I mean, for somebody who I guess was near death, I would say Kenny doesn't look so bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's another name that assuming he makes the full recovery and comeback of his placement in AEW after going through something like this, and whether you present him in a team like can you put him in like that upper echelon role at this point? Is he going to be like, he to me is a sorely missed star in AEW, just like the star power alone. But it's also like just such a high threshold, and he's coming off like just an incredible health battle that he has had that could have been fatal.
Well, I would suggest this tag team would be a perfect way to maybe just kind of ease him
for
in.
Both of them, it might be the way to go.
But I mean, there are high expectations for the level of tag team that the Golden Lovers are. So, I mean, at this stage, are those even fair expectations to, give to people who are just coming off of significant injuries? Maybe Kenny just completely changes his style, at least to start, like I'd be curious about that. Something that's maybe not so physically demanding, yet something tells me he'll probably try to keep up with the same that he's always.
Last thing we'll mention is what is coming up on Netflix tomorrow, which is Thursday. The 5 episodes of The Queen of Villains will be dropping on Dump Matsumoto. And next week, it is the Mr. McMahon series. So this is how we are going to be doing our coverage here at Post Wrestling. The entire series drops next Wednesday. Brandon, Thurston, and I are going to be moving our show to Thursday next week in order to give kind of an overview, but mainly be focusing on the Janelle Grant aspect of the episodes. And then Wai and I separately are going to do mini reviews of each episode starting next Friday. So the episode 1, we will do a free review for everybody on the site. And then from Saturday, which is September 28th through October the 2nd, daily reviews of episodes 2 through 6 that will be available exclusively for patrons at postwrestlingcafe.com. So we'll give you a sample with our review of episode 1. These will be about 30 minutes or so on each episode starting next Friday.
Yeah. I'm excited to be able to speak a little bit more at length about all this. I think the double shot is like sort of like the perfect vehicle for us to be able to get that out there. The show is being released all at once, but we will be doing a show a day, every single day for 6 days, starting on the Friday. So it's a lot of days. But basically, sign up to the Post Wrestling Cafe, and throughout the next week into October 2nd, you will get all of our thoughts on Mr. McMahon.
And the final plug is tomorrow on Thursday, dropping along with Queen of Villains, is Rewind-A-Wai. We are going back to December the 6th, 2004, Charlotte, North Carolina, for Trish Stratus versus Lita, the Diva Limbo contest. And
they weren't in the Diva Limbo contest.
No,
that took place on the same show, but
yeah,
they were in the main event.
The different divisions of the Divas in 2004. There's lots to say about this 2-hour edition of Raw. 2004, quite the era. That's all I will say. And Chris Jericho is our guest GM for the night.
And Javon Evans was how old?
Javon Evans was he was about 5 months. No, he was about 7 months old by this point, I think.
Okay.
He was born in April.
All right. Great.
So there you have it. Yes, he was technically alive during that. But we will see a young Randy Orton on that show too. So that's coming up Thursday. PostWrestlingCafe.com. $6 gets you access to all of these bonus shows. Look at this.
Don't forget, it's the return of MCU later. Okay, they've gotten the hate out of their system. Now they are back to being their lovable, very optimistic selves. And I'm talking about Rich Fan and WH Park as they talk about Agatha all along. I believe first two episodes dropped today on Disney Plus, and
I think they just dropped 90 minutes ago. Yeah.
Yes, 9 o'clock. Yeah, so they'll be talking about the both of them, and every single week they'll be joining you guys on MCU later exclusively in the Post Wrestling Cafe.
Okay. Check out all of that. And of course, check out postwrestling.com. Today on Pollock and Thurston, Brandon Ross was our guest, joining us to talk about the Sphere event that the UFC hosted, Fox getting out of the WWE business, and his thoughts on the AEW TV deal as well. So check out all of that, postwrestling.com and wrestlenomics.com. Tonight, we are headed to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, the Mohegan Sun Arena. Just under 3,000 tickets distributed from WrestleTix. And we're getting right into things with Orange Cassidy against Chris Jericho. Their first match, they note, in front of fans, because all three of their singles matches took place in 2020 without fans.
Okay, yeah. I don't often think about that. I mean, can you consider the, I guess, AEW Dark wrestlers fans? I guess not really, right?
Well, these were, I think, I can't remember at this point that they had. It was just all the wrestlers that were.
I feel like they've always had extras, right? Yeah, that's what I meant. Can you consider AEW Dark wrestlers fans?
Yeah, no, not if you're being paid to be there.
Okay,
I don't think so.
Right. All right.
So we have the seconds that are out: Kyle O'Reilly and Mark Briscoe.
Let's just sit back and remember how we got here, okay? This was a match made via a feud over a jacket that Chris Jericho was still mad about Orange Cassidy ruining. This resulted in Jericho asking Orange Cassidy to put up $7,000 in a match against Brian Keith, and if Brian Keith beat him, then Jericho would get the $7,000. But Orange Cassidy, of course, won that match. So instead, Jericho stole Orange Cassidy's backpack, which did not contain the $7,000, but contained a photo of Orange Cassidy with the best friends. This led to Orange Cassidy dumping $7,000 worth of coins into Chris Jericho's very expensive car. So he did get the $7,000 back in a way, but also probably incurred more than $7,000 of damage to the car. And let's also not forget the interaction these two had off of the CMLL 91st anniversary show as well.
Yeah, let's not forget that after all that preamble from Wai about the angles that got us here, that it was the final focus at the end of the biggest show of the year for CMLL to set us up for this TV opener.
Yeah. Just a lot of things that led to this, and by the time we've got here, I just let's assess whether or not it was a worthwhile marathon.
I'm not kidding, Wai. Until you brought this up, I didn't think about the setup to this once during this match. I didn't think about any of those angles at all. All I thought about during this match is that I thought this was a way better match than Jericho had with Mystico on Friday night.
Okay, right. Well, I mean, Mystico didn't have a backpack that Jericho stole.
I think we learned what the missing ingredients were at Arena Mexico. So they did bring up the CMLL show with both of them on the card on Friday, and Briscoe executes a dive to the floor. So Kyle O'Reilly, Big Bill, O'Reilly, and Briscoe, they just disappear about several minutes into this, but they would make their reappearance later on. Jericho, at one point, nearly loses him, but secures Orange for a power slam, and Orange gets knocked off the edge, and then Jericho just takes control of the camera that the operator has and just starts shooting Orange Cassidy and then gives it away. Hits the lion salt, and Jericho is back body drop to the floor, catches Orange and then catapults him into the barricade, and they make their way to the timekeeper's table where Jericho suplexes Orange off the equipment through the table, and both men battle back into the ring at the count of 9. They collapse. There's a tilt-a-whirl turned into the walls. The crowd is cheering on Orange Cassidy as he reaches the rope, and then Big Bill comes down, booting Orange Cassidy from the floor. So Kyle O'Reilly fights off Big Bill. goes for the beach break, but Orange's back gives out, so Jericho executes a DVD. And then after a diving DDT from Orange Cassidy, the Orange Punch is caught with a code breaker for a big near fall. Crowd is getting very heated for this. Orange ducks the Judas effect, hits the beach break, but now Brian Keith is back to stop things. So Mark Briscoe reappears, fighting off Keith, and Jericho behind Aubrey Edwards' back gets the dreaded roll of quarters. What a callback to last week.
Oh, I see. I didn't even put that together.
He rolled them all, I bet.
A $7,000 roll of quarters. Yeah.
And he goes for a punch with the roll of quarters, but Orange Cassidy takes control of the roll of quarters, hitting the Orange Punch and pins Jericho in 19 and a half minutes. Aubrey doesn't see the quarters. I thought these two had a very good match. I thought that this was... I thought they had some really great near falls in this. I thought like Jericho was on in this match. Cassidy was just so fluid with just from sequence to sequence throughout this whole thing. And for 3,000 people, I thought tonight, like this crowd really did make up for it in noise for a lot of these matches that added for this match in particular, but others later on. Like there were some blips. It wasn't the biggest crowd, but they did get lively, and I thought they did in this case.
Yeah, I like the match too. I thought it was I mean, I think Orange Cassidy matches are always very good, and I think like he's probably able to take Chris Jericho to I think a very high level in terms of like pace, in terms of I would say creativity as well in these sort of matches. They gave us like a number of like really big spots that I think helped carry the match along. I have a feeling though that I think I would have reacted this way too had they not done any of the angles ahead of time.
No, the backpack to me took it into a more emotional sequence at the end because it meant so much that the back was giving out because he hasn't been carrying his security blanket, this backpack, for all these weeks. And the back muscles have not been used to lifting people up when he has not been carrying that weight of the photo each week. So
has Orange sold anything in regards to the backpack nor the photo? Like in his appearances? Has he even made mention of it at all?
I mean, he only lost it 2 weeks ago. I don't know how much there is to lament. But
like
over the loss
this
of this
photo, especially, was supposed to be some sort of signifier of like I don't know him holding onto like these feelings. But like, has Orange even like
I don't know. He needs an iPhone badly. Yeah, I've hated the build up to this. I just think these angles have been so ridiculous, but they did pull off, I thought, a pretty great match here.
I don't disagree, and I think we could just like recognize the quality of the match for what it is, but the totality of this entire thing, a wrestling feud is not just the match at the end, it's the entire thing. And I don't think what preceded this match contributed in any way to, I think, your enjoyment of this. In fact, might have like taken away from it in some ways. Like they could have had this match completely cold, and I think I would have enjoyed it just as much. This is all to say, like, I think we could chalk up this feud as another miss for the Jericho Vortex at the moment, unfortunately. Unless it's not over. It can keep going.
Everything always keeps going. If there was one thing, it seemed pretty like there was no follow-up on like the big Bill tease that they introduced last week. Not to say they can't revisit that, but the idea of doing... I guess you could do something next week, but that feels so rushed after tonight. No. There was nothing in that direction.
Yeah, I don't know if I expect like a full turn, but maybe at least like the first signs of it. You know, like maybe a significant sign even. I think they have to do something focused on Big Bill for Queens.
Well, as of now, they don't even have any segment announced for the Learning Tree, but they can be inserted somewhere. I didn't, because in years past, it's been Dynamite and Rampage that they have done in the Arthur Ashe Stadium. Next week, they're doing Dynamite and Collision next week. So that is like 4 hours of TV they are taping. So,
but you know, like you're not sitting through commercials. Like there are video packages for Collision that, you know, maybe 3.5 hours, which isn't that unusual for.
Yeah. All is to say is that they will have a lot of stuff to fill next week.
Right.
Then we go to a video with Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, and John Moxley, and Excalibur does introduce it that they are still the Blackpool Combat Club, and this is the BCC addressing Wheeler Yuta, who they have not heard from since All Out, and it is time for him to come to work because they have a title defense next week at Grand Slam. Claudio says that he thought he taught Yuta better, but he is old enough to make his decisions. And Moxley says he has the strength to do the right thing. It's your choice. You are not trapped here with us, but you are the one that has to look yourself in the mirror and see what type of man you are that we taught. And that is our segment for next week. So it's a open challenge for next week. They have not announced opponents for Claudio, Yuta, and Pac.
Yeah, well, I guess we didn't we think it would be?
Well, I thought we were
private
getting
party?
the team introduced, but I
guess
don't
not.
see that one happening next week based on the angle we got, unless I don't know, someone can regrow a hand.
It's just a hand. You know, you don't need a hand to
have another one.
have a match. Yeah.
Marvez catches up with Yuta, and so they did this on Collision, and I understand what they're doing. Yuta is rattled by this Danielson this attack on Danielson, so everything is just off. He's both emotionally scarred, and his way of projecting this is to convey that he's concussed, basically.
Or just that he's very greatly confused by the AEW event schedule. Because he can't
there
keep
is a
track
lot
between
out there. Yes.
Grand Slam and Wrestle Dream. Yeah.
Marvez catches up with him and asks him about defending the titles at Grand Slam next week. He notes he is conflicted, but it's a big show at Wrestle Dream. And Marvez, it's Grand Slam next week. Wrestle Dream is October 12th. And you're just like, oh yeah, because I'm so disheveled from all of this. I can't remember the name of the show. And then this PA runs in. Yuta, you forgot your title in the locker room. This was also presented as live, and he was leaving the arena, and we didn't know what his attendance was necessary for on this show, other than to show up to leave.
This is a great mystery.
Like the BCC have not approached him here. That we were all under the same roof tonight.
Well, these are big buildings, John. You know, we don't know how many locker rooms that they might occupy. What time this was shot, even? Are you sure this was live? Maybe this was earlier in the day. He just came in, had his catering, and left.
Okay, yeah. I mean, Wilkes-Barre is a great tourist destination just to check out the city. And yeah, then he talks about how prestigious this title is after he just forgot it in the locker room. But he will fight next week and kick whoever's ass needs to be kicked next week.
Yeah, so what does that mean? Whose ass needs to be kicked? Is it the opponents? Or could it be his partners? Yeah. I mean, it seems to me like they are setting up, Yuta turning on the rest of the BCC. I don't think after all of this, you're just going to get Yuta folding back in, right? Because what does that do for Yuta? They're giving him focus for the first time, I think, in a long while. And I think, it's not the thing to take him over, to the next level is to actually have him rebel against the rest of the BCC. So hopefully they keep that up next week.
Hook against JD Inc. Next on the show. Roderick Strong is on commentary just to mess with Taz. And Hook just throws this guy around, cross faces Red Rum in a minute. And Strong is about to call Hook a son of a, but he holds up before he realizes he would be insulting Taz or Hook's mother.
Yes, right.
But this guy certainly lived up to the name.
JD Inc. Yes. They were calling him Hook Hogan on commentary.
They started doing the Hogan poses, and I
Roderick
rewound
Strong.
it, and I still didn't get it the second time around.
Yeah, because
Please don't explain it to me. I don't
Hook
care.
Hogan was known for his rear naked
Hook
chokes.
Hogan, is that what you say it fast enough? And I don't know.
Well, whatever. I'm sure it made sense.
This feels like this will be slotted on Collision next week instead of Dynamite.
I guess they didn't announce.
I'm sure there's a lot of matches announced. So I don't know if they'll get all of these onto just Dynamite.
Good.
Renee is at the Patriarchy, and he announces that on Rampage this week. First we have Marvez noting that it's an open challenge that has been issued by BCC, and Private Party state they want the title shot, and they're going to find a partner. And then Brother Zay states that he wants to challenge Jon Moxley. And that challenge would be answered tonight, it turns out. Renee speaks with the Patriarchy, and on Friday, it will be Nick Wayne against Rocky Romero, Leo Rush, and Kip Sabian. And it is the start of Wayne's road to glory because Christian has decided they will both hold titles. And this is unfortunate for Renee because he knows that Jon Moxley wants the AEW title, but he does not have this contract. And Renee has to refer to Cage as the future AEW champion. And then we see someone off camera and Cage tells them to stop shooting this. We're not supposed to see this. And it's Kip Sabian who is creeping in. And Cage says, I don't care about your dad. He says, if I see you again, I'm going to kill you. He's going to put him in the dirt next to his dad, which he just said Nick Wayne is going to be in a match with this guy on Friday. So in theory, Christian could see him on Rampage, and thus he's putting his life at risk on Rampage.
Maybe he means like backstage, Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I can't say I'm that interested in really any of this. I don't really like the idea of Christian threatening, this world title picture that I think is in such healthy shape between Moxley and Danielson. That feud seems so serious. It's got history attached to it. And then again, I like Christian fine as like a mid-tier, threat, but as somebody threatening the world title picture, tonally, I just don't think like his shtick really fits with like the seriousness of like what's up there right now between like Swerve and Hangman and everybody. Like the sort of like insulting somebody for like having a deceased parent, I think is good for a mid-card act, but it's yet to evolve to the level where I actually consider it a serious threat. And all this stuff with Kip Sabian, I have almost negative interest in. Like, that's the stuff I think you keep on Rampage.
Well, it will be on Rampage this Friday. And, I mean, for at least the story of this, I mean, the idea of Bryan Danielson being cleared at the last minute for this match with Nigel, it certainly does open up the, at least tease of Christian using his contract next week. And I see them dangling that.
Wouldn't that suck for Darby Allin? You give up your title shot that was supposed to be at this show, and then all of a sudden, this guy, somebody else gets the match, and then Christian might actually end up being the champion at the end of it.
Well, he would still get his title shot. It would just be a different champion, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I guess so.
Mariah May and Serena Deeb took on Queen Aminata and Yuka Sakazaki. And some very good double team work here by Aminata and Sakazaki on Deeb. And May is busy posing for the camera, has no concern for her partner. Deeb gets hit with a dragon screw, and then they tag May in, and they start to work on Aminata's neck, which is taped up. Yuka then gets the tag, and she was just the best babyface in this match. She landed a missile drop kick. She's fighting off both women, and then suplexes Mariah on top of Deeb, and May lifts Yuka for a German and just missed dropping her onto Deeb's boot. And they hit what is described as the hammerlock merry-go-round, and then Yuka hits a high cross to all three women on the floor, followed by the magical girl splash to Deeb when Mariah runs in and nails her with the belt for the unfortunate DQ at 7:57. This crowd was livid that they got a DQ finish on this show. Sakazaki was great in this match, I thought, and May then whips Yuka with the title and gives her a kiss, like Merab Dvalishvili did on Saturday night in the bantamweight title fight. Ooh. I'm sure that was what the reference was. But I think that Yuka Sakazaki is like a great opponent that Mariah May needs at this point for a title defense that I think will certainly, I just thought she really got over in this tag match.
It's really impressive how in a two really significant appearances between Collision and this show, how much she has already kind of ingrained herself into a title picture. And I think that speaks so much to just her natural charisma, I think she has a very fan-friendly in-ring style that certainly helps as well. But, I think it's a good TV opponent for Mariah May. I as always, though, you just kind of wish that they would be able to give a little bit more of a reintroduction to audiences of who Yuka Sakazaki is. And, they'll give us, I hope, a nice video package ahead of, a title match that she might provide. And maybe they haven't even announced a title match yet, so, maybe, there's still weeks of build to come. But, yeah, I think her voice is amazing. I actually want to hear Yuka Sakazaki speak more. I think it immediately makes her stand out, and I think there's actually something incredibly marketable about her that I hope to see them bring out.
Yeah, they are promoting so many shows. You have Grand Slam, You have the anniversary show the next week, and then you have Wrestle Dream. So there are a lot of slots to fill over these next couple of weeks. Then we had Mina Shirakawa addressing Mariah May in a video. She has not heard from her in months. She still misses her and ends by saying that Mina is coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this was sent over, via cell phone, but I thought very effective. They allowed her to tell a story without having her actually physically be there. Though I did get some mixed messaging from the story, so she's going to, she hasn't heard from, Mariah in months. She's concerned about the direction that she's been in, yet she is going to celebrate with her. So I guess she's got an invite to a celebration. She will accept it, but this is also her expressing concern for the type of person Mariah May has become.
Yeah, this
right.
The celebration better be something when they finally execute it.
Isn't it next week? When is it?
Well, I guess you got the indication it could be next week. She just said she's coming. She didn't say when.
Whenever Mina Shirakawa gets there, it'll happen.
All right. Then we had some video problems getting to this Nigel McGuinness video, but thankfully they got it running. Fine video here with various past ROH stars, including Mark Briscoe, Roderick Strong, Jerry Lynn, and the idea that the two of them, they bring out the best in each other and the worst in each other, and the notion that Nigel never felt he was valued as highly as Bryan, and this is his chance to beat everyone's favorite wrestler and be perceived on the same level. Again, a good video, but this did not touch that fan-made video that circulated everywhere. And I know you're not going to be able to necessarily run that on national television, but I watched that thing like 4 times last week. It was just great.
It was set to what song? I forget now.
Don't Dream It's Over.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yes, the story is incredibly deep here, and in 45 seconds or 60 seconds, however long this video is, you can't even dream of being able to convey that. I guess having known what AEW does with their video packages, I knew that this was sort of the upper limit of what to expect. There's so many details attached to this, not just about their feud in ROH, but the fact that they were both signed by the WWE, and Nigel was honest about his medical history while Bryan Danielson was not, and Nigel ended up getting released while Danielson, because he lied, ended up where he is. Oh. There's just incredible heartbreak attached to
the end of The Last of McGuinness, the first documentary he was involved in, not the WWE one, and it's right after his retirement match, and it's the night that Bryan wins his first world title in WWE, and he gets a text from Bryan that night. And here you could not have these two in more diametrically opposed realities. One has become the champion. The other has just retired in 2011. There's so much.
Bagging groceries, as his side gig while Danielson was winning the championship. Yeah, no, as always, if you choose to go deeper, you can. There's a lot of material out there. In 45 seconds to 60, however long that this had, though, I think they did a good job of giving you the bare essentials of what you needed to know. This is a rekindling of a long-standing, I would say even signature Ring of Honor feud. And Nigel had to retire. They didn't say why, but Nigel was forced to retire while Danielson went on to become one of the most famous wrestlers in history. And this is Nigel, making up for years of resentment and jealousy. And in 45 seconds, I would say they did about as good of a job as you could expect. But there's definitely there's several documentaries, I guess, even to be made about their history together.
The fact that they kept the asterisk in effect tonight, does that make you feel they're going to go right up until the show next week? To me, if you were going to make it clear, tonight was the night to do it, and they're leaving you with this if he is cleared. And I don't think that's going to deter people from thinking you're not getting this match. Yeah. But this is the point of this match, is to sell tickets for people to come see this match and not get some angle out of it.
I think they're hitting you about as hard as they can. This is almost, to me, what is it, first dance levels of like obviousness that, hey, like we're trying to promote that Danielson is going to be there, but while still keeping to the kayfabe of the explanation of why he's not facing Darby Allin at this. Like, I think the whole Darby Allin thing is just like a bit messy and something that they obviously didn't plan on initially. And they're just doing all of this asterisk stuff to like maintain some illusion that, hey, this is why Darby Allin isn't getting a title shot. Ask the question: is the type of fan that would be going to Grand Slam the type of fan that would doubt that Danielson would be there?
I just feel that this could have simply been that Nigel is calling him a coward, and this is the ultimate sign of cowardice that you're not showing up at Arthur Ashe Stadium to face me. And Brian, who is the babyface here, everyone knows this guy is not cleared. We just saw this attack, and Brian is defying AEW's orders, and therefore it's an unsanctioned match. Therefore, the title cannot be defended. Darby does not have an opponent because this is an unsanctioned match at Arthur Ashe Stadium, and we can promote the match. We don't have to put the title on. AEW is not sanctioning this, but this is Brian defying his AEW's clearance. Done.
Sure. Yeah. I guess there's a vagueness to like the unsanctioned label, and I would buy that explanation, John. So I'm sure that's what they're gonna go with.
I would just take that over this maybe stuff that we're doing. Like again,
yeah,
it is what it is. I think most are. I look at this less of people that are at home expecting this and those that are. We're going to see next week. We're going to see next week.
Asterisk deterring people from buying a ticket that might have bought a ticket to Grand Slam?
We don't know. We'll see how many they move over the next week for this. They have gone very hard the last week pushing Grand Slam. Like this does feel like a very big TV show for them. BCC come out with Outpack, and Brother Zay and Mark Quinn attack them in the crowd, and Shafir gets in on just beating these guys to a pulp. Like Private Party just looked like they picked a fight and they got destroyed for this plan of theirs. They go into this fight, they're outnumbered, and Claudio hits Quinn with 2 chokeslam backbreakers. Moxley and Shafir beat the piss out of Zay, and then Mox holds him as Shafir just does like a kickboxing routine on him. Commander shows up, and you think, okay, he's going to even the numbers. He goes for a tope suicida into a Claudio uppercut. I mean, these baby faces just could not come across like more foolish in this plan. So Shafir then attacks Alex Abrahantes, and they take away his microphone. This is like taking away a man's backpack. Lost his microphone. And Moxley takes out a toolbox, and he gets a hammer, and he explains to Brother Zay, we could end your career right now, but I'm not going to do that. You've been here since the beginning. 5 years, and you're in the exact same spot you were 5 years ago. So I'm going to give you an obstacle to overcome. And with that, he smashes his hand with a hammer. And this is certainly an obstacle for Brother Zay to overcome. And then Darby shows up, nailing Moxley with his skateboard from behind. They have a standoff in the ring, and Darby goes after him with the skateboard, and Moxley rolls out to the floor. And Darby explains he is not the same guy he was 5 years ago, contrasting himself with Brother Zay, and that he will go through him at Grand Slam, go to Wrestle Dream in his home state, and become the next AEW champion.
So we had some clarification about Darby's title shot, I guess, or where it would be cashed in, or whoever wins this match, I guess.
Yes. So this, in theory, is setting us up for who will face Danielson at Wrestle Dream. And I think this should be the main event on next week's show. I thought this segment was great for building up Moxley and Darby.
Not the unsanctioned match between Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness?
I could almost see them. They could put that on last. But you might want to do an angle at the end where it's the winner and Danielson comes out afterwards. That you could start with Danielson and Nigel potentially. Sure. Anyway, this was great for building up Darby and Moxley, and maybe down the road this will do something for Private Party. But I just thought they They murdered these guys, and it was just comical. How much they just destroyed these guys. So maybe this is going to be one of those. In 3 years, we're going to go back to this angle, and it's going to be the beginning of the growth for Private Party. But man. I did not like. I thought they were like you. I thought this was going to set them up for the trios belts. I was like, this is the worst buildup for a team in history, if that was the case, and does not appear to be the case.
It was very much shades of, I guess, the NWO and like the WCW cruiserweights. But I have a bit more confidence that there will be some follow up for at least Private Party coming out of this, because of, I think, this the sort of like story that I guess we heard from Mox here of like, like this was a promise that, hey, this is going to motivate you and this is going to take you to the next level. Almost like this was almost some form of like mercy, like, attack from John Moxley. And we continue to like maybe peel back some layers about like exactly what Mox's intent is here. He's saying that like a team like Private Party, who's been here for 5 years, has not elevated themselves, so he's about to give them some motivation. So there's still some sense that he of us believing that he thinks he's doing all of this for the greater good, which I think continues to make him pretty interesting. Commander, I'm not so sure about. I don't think he gains anything out of this.
That was just like that was like watching those pans fall after Braun and Bronson Reed on Monday. Like that was what Commander's spot was, because he looked like a goof. But it also didn't help that when BCC came out, there was a good portion that just they see them as these kick-ass baby faces. They do not see them as heels, and didn't throughout this beatdown. They look cool as hell. Watch in a segment like this.
Yeah. But I also didn't mind the segment, because I think the bigger story here is that you needed to do something vicious enough to follow up on the plastic bag angle. And while this is not plastic bag levels of shock or violence, it was like a hammer to a dude's hand is still like a pretty vicious, brutally violent type of scene that they managed to just deliver here. So I think it continues to build up this new BCC's reputation as just like a group that's not really about like technical wrestling anymore. They're just out to like
hammer you,
hammer you, or like suffocate you to near death. I mean, and I think it's a great elevation of the BCC to like now like this extra scary type of group, which I think is what they initially tried to be.
Should this have set up a trios title match for next week, with the asterisk if Brothers A is cleared?
How many people at Grand Slam would be deterred by that asterisk?
That should be the whole card. If maybe
all asterisks. Yeah, sure.
Mystery Vortex. They announced first of all, we go from that angle to a Jack Perry highlight video, which they stated this is what Jack Perry's been up to since All Out, which consists of like a week of matches that he's won.
Well, he's been driving in his
bus
van,
and he beat Chris Daniels. Was pretty much what we got here.
He's been really in love with this van, and
I'm glad we had time for this.
Sure. Well, listen. Okay, AEW has I think taken a lot more advantage of their video department lately. Post-production video department, and they've given us a lot more just bridges in people's storylines without them actually being there or having matches, by just showing you recaps essentially of what they've done. And I welcome it. Like it keeps these people in our minds without necessarily having to spend a whole segment on a match or something.
Well, we spent 11 and a half minutes on this next match between Ricochet and Beast Mortos. And this was Ricochet just going out there with a guy that was going to just like, whatever you want to come up with, I'm good. So Ricochet early on hits a tope suicida, then goes for a tope con hero and is caught as Mortos powerbombs him onto the edge of the apron, going into the picture-in-picture break. Mortos is in control and then runs Ricochet chest first into the turnbuckle, and Ricochet comes back. Tiger feint kick into a pop-up Samoan by Beast Mortos. And Mortos tries for a monkey flip off the ropes, but he gets thrown over by Ricochet, who then does a dive over the top. And it appeared that he like overshot and that Mortos was going to catch him, because Ricochet just crashes into the guardrail and Mortos immediately lifts him up like he's going for a power bomb for Ricochet to hit a Canadian destroyer. If they were just going for one seamless sequence here with the dive into the destroyer, that seemed to be the idea here, and that was quite an ambitious choice.
Everything they were doing was a pretty ambitious choice. Maybe that was the most ambitious, but yeah, they'll nail that eventually at some point. Like this, it's one of those like they're letting their imaginations fly. And I don't know if they have time to even practice some of this stuff, or if it's just like, hey, let's just try it in the ring. If it happens, it happens. If not, well, that's fine too.
Yeah, it didn't seem like either side was uttering the words, "Are you sure about that?" And we continued. Springboard 450 by Ricochet, and then Mortos hits his top rope military press slam. Huge AEW chant comes, and then Ricochet counters off the shoulders with a crucifix bomb, axe kick, and vertigo to win in 11 and a half minutes. Super exciting match that the two had here, and really got this crowd into things for this match, which Beast Mortos is just so consistent. When you can put him with just about anybody, he does not get enough of the attention for the role he has played in getting some of the best matches out of, a wide variety of styles.
I think he's very much quickly ascending to almost like Konosuke Takeshita levels of like, here's a guy who doesn't really have any sort of significant storyline, never cuts a promo, doesn't really have video packages dedicated to him, yet is so constantly exceptional in these sort of setup roles that he's going to just get over because of that reason. He's already, I would classify as like a cult favorite to the level where like even seeing this graphic of Ricochet versus Beast Mortos is enough to feel like a dream match. So and it's a pretty short amount of time, I would say, that he's been in the AEW system and has been able to achieve this. So there's so much they could do with the Beast Mortos. Just the marketability of like these masks alone is I don't know. There's so much more to do, and I think this was a great showcase for him. I came out of this even more impressed by him than Ricochet, but these have been great like showcase matches for Ricochet. Giving him fresh opponents on the AEW roster, and I think he's starting to slowly show more and more of just like more of an exceptional ability to him that maybe we hadn't always seen so much in the WWE.
Yeah, and it's been a transition for him, like going from one to the other. But I thought this was overall a really good outing for both of them. Collision on Saturday, they have announced a 10-man all-star tag with FTR, Hook, and the Outrunners against GYV, Roosh, Roderick Strong, and Beast Mortos. So I really like the fact that some crowds have gotten into the Outrunners, so let's just give them a shot, and they're going with them. Like, it's something that where I don't think you could have predicted some of these recent crowd reactions, but it's there. So let's try and foster that and see if we have something here with these guys.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about cult favorites, I think they've already very much reached that level. Just look at the reaction online to their first win on Collision, I believe like a week or two ago. They just have these exceptional vignettes. I believe they were on Chris Jericho this week as well, and caught some headlines just like for some of the funny things that they were saying. Like the gimmick is that they're time travelers, and they're talking about like wrestling in world class or something. It's like, it's very funny. It's one of those gimmicks that's an AEW, I guess you could say, original, because they hadn't really been exposed anywhere else, that is really catching fire, and I hope they take them as far as they can.
Schiavone brought out Hangman Page, and he has asked about the threats that he has made towards anyone who supported Swerve, and he knew this day would come where Swerve is dealt with and be gone. And there are dozens of others that have to pay. Those who protected him from Hangman and supported him. And he heard those chants of whose house, and reminds him of those 4 months he was at home suspended. And he heard another voice, loud and clear, on the commentary desk. And he looks at Tony Schiavone, and this crowd is, oh no, what is he going to do to Tony? And Jeff Jarrett runs out to protect Tony, and security is in to prevent the two from getting at one another. Lethal and Singer out, and Jarrett states that if it's the last thing I do in my career, somewhere and somehow I'm going to kick your ass.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Good segment. I mean, I continue to love Hangman. To be honest, like, threatening Tony, it works. I guess I just feel like it's kind of cliche at this point, like a lot of heels do it. And for me, like, Hangman has already ascended to the level of heel that is beyond just like an Adam Cole, when he was like threatening Tony Schiavone, for instance, or whatever, whoever else, that it almost kind of took him back a step to me of like, here's a guy that's playing a character now rather than just like a guy I actually believed was like scary. But it's probably way too much thought to put into like one simple segment here just to get Jeff Jarrett to come out, cut a very good promo as well, and getting us to that match next week. Is it next week?
They haven't announced the match. It's just somewhere and somehow. So that could be a lot of places. Renee is with Ricochet, and Will Ospreay walks in and he offers his hand to Ricochet, and Ricochet says, "Yeah, you don't have to apologize for anything." And he explains to Ospreay that it seems that there's more people challenging me, thinking that I'm the guy to beat around here. And I spoke to Tony, and we're gonna have our match on the 5-year anniversary show on October 2nd for that international title. You might be on another level, but I'm out of this world, little bro. And off walks Ricochet. So we are getting the match in 2 weeks in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, is that earlier than you expected? What do you think about the timing?
No, because initially I was thinking when he debuted, I was thinking maybe that's your Arthur Ashe Stadium match that they go to. Like, it was clear they were going to be getting to it. You need something, I guess, big for that anniversary show. I think this could have been on the pay-per-view. And we're probably not going to be limited to one match that these two have. But my God, is there an expectation that is going to be set for these next 2 weeks for these two?
There certainly is, yeah. I don't mind the timing as well, just in terms of just where we are in the story, how long we've kind of been maybe used to seeing Ricochet at this point in AEW. Like, there's only so long that I think you can dangle that carrot before it starts to maybe not feel so fresh anymore. So I think like 2 weeks time is good. More importantly, I'm happy with the place that they've gotten to with this storyline. I think they've actually done a pretty good job of building this little grudge here between, Ospreay and Ricochet. I was kind of critical of like their first interactions where it just felt like they didn't have much reason to actually be angry at each other. But I thought Ricochet in this segment in particular, first of all, managed to show, I think, the great strides that he's made on the microphone and as an actor, that I thought he came across really well here and like showcasing his frustrations at like coming in here, wanting a match against Will Ospreay, and Ospreay essentially telling him, "Hey, get back in the line. Earn enough wins so that you can you could be worthy of challenging me." And if you're Ricochet, who's like this like sort of like long-term rival of Ospreay's, of course you'd be pissed off. And I thought Ricochet conveyed that frustration pretty well. And he can have great matches, and I think ultimately in AEW that's going to be the most important thing, but how he's going to take himself to a different level is by showcasing his new strengths, or at least like abilities to talk on the microphone and to tell stories via scenes like this, the way Will Ospreay has. Ospreay, I think what's made him such a difference maker in AEW is not just his great wrestling, but the fact that he's a complete package. And I think Ricochet has to really show that as well.
Maybe we'll get a video package next week with highlights of some of their past matches, and we can get a lot of the tweets that came out of their Core Q and Hall match.
Again, you could have a documentary made about just the entire phenomenon surrounding that match too. Yeah, and the outrage.
How this match led to Will Ospreay versus Vader.
Did it? Wow.
Yes.
Taking me back. Yeah.
Main event is the Young Bucks and Kazuchika Okada against Ospreay, Konosuke Takeshita, and Kyle Fletcher with Don Callis on commentary. And early on, they are suggesting that Ospreay and Takeshita not on the same page as partners. And they made a nice link here explaining that Takeshita may have had the best G1 debut this past August since Okada in 2012, and making it clear that those two are on the collision course down the road. Okada and Ospreay get tagged in, and this was, in fact, their first time in a match together in AEW.
Yes. And certainly the crowd recognized that as a pretty significant moment, even if, like, in terms of storyline, they really, don't have anything going on with each other. But the commentators did make mention of it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Bucks accidentally nail Okada with double kamigiris in the corner after Kyle Fletcher sends Okada into the corner, and then that leads to a triple-seated dropkick on Okada. Takeshita no-sells the super kicks from the Bucks and clotheslines them when he gets nailed with a shotgun blast by Okada. Everyone is down. AEW chants. They get the heat on Konosuke throughout the break, and then Nick Jackson spits at Fletcher, and Fletcher is furious at this. Okada hits the elbow drop onto Takeshita, the middle finger spot, and then Takeshita makes his comeback, a double German to both members of the Bucks, and then he looks over at the corner and he makes the tag to Will Ospreay. So Ospreay comes in, ducks a Rainmaker. He is hit by double super kicks, and then Nick does this spot where he hits a double stomp to Ospreay, who is draped on the top. He bounces off the rope into a sit-out powerbomb by Matt Jackson. They proceed with super kicks. EVP trigger is stopped by Fletcher, and after a TK driver is avoided, Ospreay hits the hidden blade on Nick, and together, Fletcher and Ospreay hit the Coriolis onto Matt Jackson for the pin, and it's Kyle Fletcher getting the pin. I thought excellent booking of this finish and doing the nod to Aussie Open as well.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. I wonder if all of this is like trying to subtly build to like a Mark Davis return, and like
I don't know how you can't have like
place.
the idea that they're doing this with like Mark Davis potentially being close to returning, like getting that into your mind through the finisher.
Yeah, you can't do the Coriolis with anybody but me, you know? Like that'd be like you doing Rewind-A-Dynamite with somebody else, John. I'd be very mad.
I think that has happened on quite a few occasions, but okay. I understand, yes.
Yeah, really excellent trios match here. You would have thought like this team of like Ospreay, Fletcher, and Takeshita had been teaming together for a long time before this, with the way like they gelled so well together. So much effort was made in creating like very awesome like three-way spots between members of that team, certainly members of the Elite, and you couple that with the flawless execution that everybody was capable of here in this match. Like this was an excellent TV main event, very successful at building to next week's tag team match, as well as your future matches in Okada Takeshita. A lot of emphasis on that. I would say Ospreay and Takeshita, they put a great deal of emphasis on as well, and even drawing some association to the past in Okada and Ospreay. So really great, really strong TV main event.
I thought this was a strong show. I mean, again, it wasn't the biggest crowd, but I thought that they did their part in the key matches to at least make up for, this could have been another one of those really like empty sounding crowds, and I didn't think that was the case in Wilkes-Barre. And the match quality was very strong on this show. Like there are a lot of programs that they are building, and that's probably only like it does feel like a big show for next week. And the updated card we have for Grand Slam, we have Claudio, Pac, and Wheeler against, well, at least Cage Match now is listing this against Private Party and a mystery partner. We will see how that plays out. I guess, are they advertising that? That's what's listed on Cage Match. Hook and Roderick Strong for the FTW title. Young Bucks against Fletcher and Ospreay. Moxley against Darby Allin in the number one contenders match. And maybe Bryan Danielson against Nigel McGuinness.
Where's the asterisk on Cage Match, huh?
Yeah, Cage Match is being pretty damn definitive.
John Cena, get on that. All right, this is.
Do they know
we don't know. We don't know this is about to happen. Yeah. I think it's a good looking show that they've done good job in providing like adequate story for. It's all your top stars, and no matter what you think about the asterisk or the shenanigans involving like Darby not getting the title shot, Darby versus Mox is going to be an amazing match. Nigel versus Danielson is going to be a very nostalgic feeling, significant match, I would say, in this Bryan Danielson run. And then Bucks versus Fletcher and Ospreay, that's going to be excellent. So, yeah, good looking card so far.
We have a bunch of feedback to tonight's show, and your super chats are welcome as well. So, Wei, you take us in the direction that you see fit.
I want to go to forum.postwrestling.com.
We are going to kick things off with Benjamin, who writes that Jericho's rehab match with Orange Cassidy was okay. Women's tag match was good, but nothing is going to touch Ricochet and Beast Mortos. That was great. And the noisy-ass backstage promo was even good. I found the BCC stuff and Private Party stuff a little scattered. I'm loving the storytelling behind Nigel McGuinness's motivation for the match, technical issues and all, which also just highlights how good Excalibur is at just filling airtime when stuff like that happens. I feel like the Bucks, like Jericho, need some time away to make us miss them. It feels like they're kind of spinning their wheels waiting for Omega to return with Ibushi. I think the same with FTR. They haven't had a meaningful program for a while now, and it feels like they just got inserted into big matches when pay-per-views come around the corner.
I don't disagree with the Bucks and Jericho. I think they just need characters that suit them. I think time away to maybe separate us from, thinking of them as their current selves to what they might give us in the future is helpful as well. Yeah, this entire Bucks EVP's takeover thing has just suddenly like died a bit of a death, hasn't it? Like they've not really kind of hit on
I don't know if I'd even say suddenly. Like I just don't think this thing is ever to me the Tony Khan angle, like once they did that and the handling of that to me, like I thought that took all the air out of whatever this was. I think the Omega attack is something you can revisit when he's ready to come back. Like that was a big attack. But
what's the extent of their power these days? What they could make tag matches?
That's my biggest issue with it is that's not even explained. Like Tony is the be all end all that's presented as such on this show, and yet when it's convenient, the Bucks are able to run things. It makes no sense to me. It's been, I just think a story that has been rife with issues throughout, and I think it has had a perception issue with the Young Bucks at this point being attached to. What feels, I won't go so far as to say a full on like just comedy act, but like certainly a much different feeling than say the BCC that feel like the real big heel faction in the company.
I tend to kind of feel this way now about like any of their heels that are like a bit more on the comedic side of things. You know, I'm talking
Undisputed Kingdom. Like remember the whole build up to that, like that was done to be a serious team. And what came out of it was comedy.
The bar is just set so high now for a serious heel in AEW that I don't really have that much time for the patriarchy. I don't really have that much time for this version of the Bucks, nor the learning tree. You know, like again, it's fine to maybe have some of that stuff on like the lower to mid card, but man, like I'm so much more interested in your serious acts, like a Hangman Page, like like the BCC, and not to say everybody needs to be like suffocating each other with like plastic bags or like putting needles in each other's faces, but I just want a serious tone when it comes to my heels these days, and there's probably room for like the comedic guys too, but it's not maybe to close the show, or at least like if you're trying to feel threatening like the Bucks, I'm just not really buying it. So all right, let's go to Saeed from Vancouver, who says, I'm back. Next week is stacked. Very interested to see what happens with Yuta. I can see the turn on him, but not really sure who will take his spot as I don't see the titles being dropped. I mean, I hope they don't just turn on Yuta. I mean, make Yuta look really dumb to just kind of walk into that knowing that what they did to Danielson. Like, in order for Yuta to come out of this elevated, he needs to show that he's prepared and that he's able to outsmart the rest of his, BCC, I guess, former colleagues. So I'm hoping to see that as a more productive way of treating Yuta next week, but we'll see. Looking forward to Danielson versus McGuinness. Women's tag match was okay. Loving the chaos of the BCC. You can't predict what they're going to do. The addition of Marina has done wonders for her. Putting the current storyline aside, do you guys believe Darby is ready to be a world champion, or do you see him in the mid-Carter title level?
No, I think he's somebody that is of that level that you could argue at this point that I think the audience is hungry for someone viewed at that next level to ascend, to become someone that's perceived to be that AEW homegrown star. You do have like an MJF and such, but someone new, like a Darby Allin. Like I think historically, when you see somebody catapult themselves into a main event level, winning that first championship, that can sometimes be a spark. It gives a freshness to things. And I think like you have this incredible lineup of main eventers at the moment, but I think audiences really get into seeing that elevation of someone who is ready to make that jump and then succeeds. And you can tell that story over several months. It does not have to be executed in 3 or 4 weeks at WrestleDream, but wouldn't be the worst thing either. I think like I think Darby has grown to that level that I think everyone can see him at that stage.
I agree very much so. So for me, the question is not whether or not Darby is ready for the championship. What's the best moment to crown him as champion? Because I think you want that moment to feel earned. You want it to feel satisfying. You want it to feel like it's maybe as big as Cody Rhodes winning the championship, for the first time.
And what's Danielson's schedule? Like, what is he looking at in terms of like number of matches?
Yeah. And if for Danielson it ends at Wrestle Dream, then yeah, I would go with Darby. But if Danielson is going to wrestle longer, I think you have Danielson drop it to Mox at a later date. Maybe not even a Wrestle Dream, man. So that means okay. Anyway, I'm thinking out loud, but okay. I feel like, can we agree that Mox is going to be the guy to take the belt off of Danielson eventually? Is that? Do you think that that's at the end of the road of this retirement tour for him?
I don't think it's a lock, but I think it makes for a really compelling match next week, because I think you can make strong arguments of Danielson and Darby in Tacoma, even though the story is Danielson and Moxley, which would be kind of your knee-jerk reaction that should be the match. And you could go so far as to say, if you want to truly go all the way with Moxley, yeah, it's retiring Danielson in his home state and taking the title.
So what I'm struggling with is, in either case, whether it be Moxley or Darby winning the match next week, whoever of those two facing Danielson at Wrestle Dream makes it very likely that Danielson will lose that match, because they're both great candidates to beat Bryan Danielson and to retire Bryan Danielson, right? And that just kind of makes me sad, because Wrestle Dream is not that far away, to know that like this.
But that's
this
what that's the dynamic you want for all of these Danielson matches, is the belief that this could be it. This could be the last match, and that's what the pay-per-view will be sold on. Is I don't want to miss this if this is in fact his last match, which I think with either opponent you will have that believability that was absent with Jack Perry.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, like, he could end up winning, prolong the run that much longer, and then rematch against one of these guys to pass the torch at that point. But yeah, I think Mox and Darby is a great match to make for that reason.
Brian in New Jersey, I thought tonight's episode picked up considerably in the second hour. I wasn't too hot on all of the first hour outside of the Wheeler Yuta promo, but from 9 onward, we had the chaos of Moxley's crew, Private Party, and Darby Allin, Ricochet going to war with a beast with his Puma-like instincts, Jeff Jarrett saving Tony Schiavone from Hangman Page, and a fun main event to build up matches for next week and beyond.
Let's go to Jordan from the Bronx, who says, I've been having mixed feelings regarding AEW lately. The matches always deliver, the pay-per-views are fun, but the weekly TV has moments where I'm not engaged. I found myself, during a good portion of the show, not really paying attention. I don't have much interest in another Jericho Orange Cassidy program, and I'm not into the Bucks title run. However, I am into Private Party and Queen Aminata stepping into bigger roles. The tag division really needs something new injected into it, and Private Party can be that. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if tonight's angle was meant to.
We're starting at square one tonight.
Maybe this injured hand is going to be the defining.
Listen,
trait.
in other instances, you can look at stuff like that, like the WCW Cruiserweight example, where that was not done with any intention of helping any of those people. Those were just victims for your stars. I don't think I think wholeheartedly this is designed for Private Party to grow and evolve into the fact they're calling out that you've been in the same spot for the last 5 years. Like
We'll see.
I think you would be optimistic. Will it pan out that way? That's a bigger crapshoot. But I think the intention is there for them to get to a higher level.
He goes on to say, I've attended every Grand Slam in the past, but my friends and I are choosing to skip this one. The tapings are long, the stadium is a bit of a logistical nightmare, and the card overall doesn't seem to carry the weight of previous years. Adding in Nigel Danielson could have been great if they could definitively state that it was happening. Well, in brackets. He's saying brackets, of course it is. But as you guys pointed out last week, pulling the title match off the show just to still have Danielson advertised anyway makes the whole thing awkward. Okay. So, I mean, is Jordan, actually deterred by the asterisk? Or is he just not that interested in Danielson versus Nigel as a match, which I think is very fair criticism, because not everybody cares about the Nigel McGuinness story.
I can get it. Like, every year I've heard the complaints about like how late these shows go, especially on a Wednesday night with the double and that's just with Rampage. I guess they had Dark in the past as well, but it's really late nights in the middle of the week. I can't say though the card quality, I think it looks pretty strong what they have announced so far.
Yeah. But is it missing a title match?
It might be. Like, that does. I mean, that wouldn't be swaying my interest in the match, but for some it will. Like, that is the big hook of Danielson's title reign, is the idea that it's almost like this is separate from the whole story you're telling about my next loss will be my last match. And it's like they're taking that away. Mm-hmm. So All right, last one here is Matthew from Nashville. I've been an AEW fan since day one, and every week I feel like I'm drifting further away from the product. The Jericho stories just don't do it for me, and there's a lot of start-stop pushes going on that are also a detriment to the product. Where's Mercedes? Where's Britt Baker? They have vanished. There's just not enough stories within the product to keep an audience engaged for 2 full hours. I thought Moxley's comment about Brothers A was so ironic that it was almost a shoot. He's right that the guy's no more over than he was 5 years ago, but that statement could literally apply to 90% of their roster, including the Young Bucks, Moxley himself, etc. The only original talent I can think of that are more over now are Hangman Page with his new character, MJF, and Darby Allin. Some of the talent that are still with the company are a complete afterthought now, or they've been off TV so much that everyone forgets them. I could easily keep going, but I really just find it sad and disheartening how much the promotion has fallen since then, yet they still swung a great television deal, so good job to Tony. WrestleTix had this at just under 3,000 tickets out, but the arena was very dark and only the floor was lit during production. Is the drop count that low? The Mohegan Sun Arena is not that large of a capacity compared to some of the major sports arenas. All right. I think that's a little harsh on the comments about AEW talent that is over, that I think they have gotten over several stars, I would say, as national stars. An Orange Cassidy, I would state, from where he was day one in AEW to what he grew into.
MJF.
MJF, Britt Baker. I mean, he did name here like MJF and Darby Allin and Hangman as exceptions, but I think they have gotten a lot of talent over that have been able to ascend into roles. Some of them, like Moxley, to me, is someone that
I think that's kind of unfair because, like, in the case of like the Bucks and Mox, like they've taken so many twists and turns within their careers, both as like heels and baby faces, that I think you can't just say like, are you as over now as you were back then? Because they were already really over back then. So they for some of them there wasn't much more space to go, but were they able to go in different directions to give you satisfying professional wrestling programming? And the answer is yes in many of those cases.
Yeah,
I would actually make
look at Swerve Strickland.
I would actually make a really strong argument that Mox is a much more respected and much more like sort of like, I don't know, credible, professional wrestler now than when he was coming straight out of the WWE as Dean Ambrose. Yeah, he totally
remember when he showed up at Double or Nothing, that was before he did his first New Japan match. Like everyone thinks of Moxley, like he was still like, he had the stench of Dean Ambrose in a big way. And yeah, it was the pop, like here's a WWE star that's ending the pay-per-view. But dude, the jury was out on what this guy was going to do outside of a WWE system. And obviously, like that sounds insane now, all these years later. But that was before he did any of the New Japan stuff on that Best of the Super Juniors final. He did the match on, then the G1.
Dean Ambrose was not a guy you could picture putting a plastic bag over somebody else's head. A gas mask, maybe, but
yeah, oversized foam cowboy hat, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway. But thank you, Matthew, for the feedback as well. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. That is going to bring an end to the show. But coming up on Thursday, we have Rewind-A-Way covering Raw from December 6th, 2004. Also dropping Thursday, MCU Later, our man, W.H. Park, who I got to see earlier this week. He will be joined by Rich Fan as they go through 2 episodes of Agatha All Along that have just dropped on Disney+. Way and I will get back together on Friday night for Rewind to SmackDown. I was going to do the show with somebody else, but Way threatened to kill me and put me in the dirt. Yeah, that was didn't want to risk that. So I will be here with Way on Friday night, and then another great edition of Collision Course coming up Saturday night with Kate and John Cena.
All right, excellent. Thank you, John, for being here.
Thanks for letting me be here. How was my audio?
You're welcome. Perfect. Let's not. We didn't jinx ourselves. To my ears, okay. I could listen back to this afterwards, and who knows?
I can't go into the comments. I was pissed on Monday. All right. That's it for us, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And we're going to be back on Thursday chatting Trish versus Lita and Limbo. That's it. Good night.